Hello, my name is Duane Johnson. It is July 30th, 2018. This is my lab video on biochemical testing, carbohydrate fermentation testing. So we have all of the equipment here ready to go. We're going to start by taking our phenol red, which is labeled number 1, number 2, Epi and Cerevisiae. So it's the Staphylococcus epidermidis and the Saccharomyces cerevisiae. We're going to be testing those in the phenol red pH indicating broths. So we're going to be doing that with carbohydrate fermentation testing. These are the carbohydrates we'll be using, I gather. So one is glucose, one is fructose, and one is mannitol. So all the phenol reds are labeled for each one of those, and they're all labeled numbers 1, 2, and 3 for the epidermidis and the cerevisiae for each one, for each of the carbohydrates. So first off, we're going to start by sterilizing the testing tubes. So we're going to pass these over the flame to sterilize the tips. Should be good. And we're going to add half the glucose to this one, seeing as how we're testing the glucose with this. So we're going to put half, and then the other half is going to go in for the other culture that we'll be testing. Add a little bit more. Then afterwards we're going to shake it. Oh, no way to get that back. So I still have a little bit more. This may throw off the test a little bit. That was a bit harder than... Oh, I should have sterilized that. Apologies. Go ahead and just do that step. It's already done, but go ahead and do that step again. So that we can add to the errors. 2 errors in one already. So we'll give that a shake till it's all dissolved. Looks good. Now we'll go on to this one. This is number 1 Cerevisiae glucose. So we'll do this a little bit better this time. But this will definitely have less carbohydrate than the other ones, so that definitely have to be noted. Not very much. That's unfortunate. I'm sure for actual labs and reports and stuff on biochemical testing, the tapping and all that probably isn't recommended for sterility purposes. I'm sure they have better means of doing it. So that's step 1 for those. So I'm going to continue the process for all of those. The glucose is done. We'll be doing the fructose for the next 2. And also, I did notice that in my phenol red broth, for this phenol red broth, I believe there was a small crack or something on the bottom. The color is slightly off already on the phenol red test, so I'll definitely have to note that as well, as opposed to all the other phenol reds. The red is a little off, so I don't know if that's going to change the indication, but it'll be noted and take that into consideration. So that's number 2 epidermidis for the fructose. So that'll be it. I'll get those done and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so something worth noting. Also the phenol red that the color was off on a little bit, it also has a little bit less of the broth in it, or the phenol red broth. And also when I shook up the fructose for these 2, they were considerably bubbly. They have a lot more bubbles than the glucose. So that would lead me to believe that with the Durham tubes, those are going to be used because they're going to be inverted inside of these. They're going to test the carbon dioxide and gases that are going to be building up within these closed off as the cultures ferment. So I believe that these, with the fructose, they might produce a bit more gases. So the Durham tubes are probably going to end up rising more than these ones. So we'll just move on to the mannitol, if that's how it's pronounced, I believe. So we'll sterilize these. Yeah, like I said, they probably have more sterile ways of doing this in an actual lab, because I can't see how this is completely sterile. But the fructose also was really, really hard. It was already very hard, not so powdery. Really hard to add. So we'll try to do our best with this one as well to get it in there and get half. Worth noting, I think like a small spoon or something should be added to the lab pack to kind of spoon these in at like their appropriate amount. That might make things a bit easier in the future for other students. Now, these are really chunky. These carbohydrates are chunky. Doesn't necessarily mean carbs make you chunky though. So that was number 3, epidermidis mannitol. We're going to give that a shake. That one's really bubbly too. The fructose still has lingering bubbles on top as opposed to the glucose. All of that. Now these Durham tubes that I have laid out, they were already sitting in alcohol for some time. They haven't been placed out on this mat for far too long, and this mat is really clean. I had also cleaned off my workspace also with a 10% bleach solution. So all this should be still really, really clean. I wouldn't call it sterile, but it's still very clean. So here, we'll pass this over again before we add the Durham tubes. Grab one. Make sure it's nice and dry. Oh, there we go, forgetting again. So see how it's floating? Go ahead and just invert it real quick so it seeps to the bottom. It beats all those afterwards. Almost did it again. So this is going to be the procedure that I take for the rest of these for 4 more.